Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about a visual to help us write expressions, and then we're also going to use a graphic organizer to help us solve equations. So we're going to start with what you see on the screen, which are some bags, and these little red squares represent blocks. Okay, so title the next clean page in your notebook, using bags and blocks to write expressions. And then I also want you to draw, you don't need to draw bags like you see on the screen, but just draw, like, 4 rectangles, and then in front of each rectangle draw these 2 small squares. So each rectangle is going to represent a bag, and then in front of each bag we have 2 extra blocks. So what we're going to do is, let's suppose that I have blocks inside of each bag. You just don't know how many I have in each bag. Now, if I want you to find the total number of blocks in the picture, what would you do? Well, we don't know how many are in each bag, so that's our variable. So we're going to say we'll use B, equal the number of blocks in each bag. Okay, and so what I'm going to do on each bag, I'm actually going to draw a B to represent the number of blocks in that bag. Okay, so I've shrunk that image down so we don't forget what it looks like, but let's continue. So you're just going to continue in your notebook as I talk and I write. Now we know that we have this diagram right here. We have 4 bags. There are B blocks in each bag, and then in front of each bag we have those 2 extra blocks. So we wrote a let statement that said let B equal the number of blocks in each bag. Now, how would we find the total number of blocks in all? Well, we could add all the blocks in the bag. So that would be B plus B plus B plus B. Now, if I add B 4 times, I can combine those, and that's the same as saying 4 times B, okay? Because I have 4 of them, so instead of adding it 4 times, I can just multiply it by 4. And you know that I want 4B to be written as 4 times B to be written as 4B. So I'm going to write another let statement. So let 4B equal, well, what does that equal? It's in blue, and in blue in my diagram, I have it all circled, is the number of blocks in 4 bags. Number of blocks in 4 bags. Okay, now if I think about what else do I need to do to find the total number of blocks, I still have these extra blocks in front. Okay, so I'm going to color code that in purple. I have 2 blocks in front of each bag, and there are 4 bags, so that would be the same as saying 2 times 4. So now if I add these 2 things here, that's how I would find the total number of blocks. So what I just wrote in purple there, don't write that, I'm just showing you this, but you are going to write this let statement. So let 4B, so that's the 4 bags, plus the 8 extra blocks in total, that is going to equal the total number of blocks. Okay, so we know 4B plus 8 is the total number of blocks from that picture with the bags. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the total number of blocks in one of those pictures. So if I tell you the total number of blocks, so I'm going to basically replace the let statement description with a number now. I'm going to tell you that the total number of blocks is 32. So I'm going to ask you to go work kind of backwards and figure out how many blocks are in each bag. Okay, so what you would do is we're going to set up an equation because essentially this is the whole point of what I'm trying to get you to do, is we're going to start writing equations and solving them. And that requires us to work backwards. So right now we have this equation that you see here of 4b plus 8 equals 32. And in this situation, 32 is representing the total number of blocks, and we want to work backwards to figure out how many blocks are in each bag. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a graphic organizer to help us work backwards. And that graphic organizer is called a flow chart. Okay, so what I want you to do is go to a clean page right now. So go to the next page in your notebook, and I want you to label the top of that page a flow chart. So at the top of your page, we're going to label it flowcharts and backtracking. I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. Okay, so here's what a flowchart looks like. So I'm going to use that same equation. We had 4b plus 8 equals 32. And a flowchart looks something like this. Okay, so we set up a circle, and that first circle is always our input. And our input is always going to be our variable. Okay, so in this case, when I do one with numbers, that first circle is going to have our b in it. Then we have our last circle. In this case, I have a flowchart that only has 3 circles. Sometimes our flowcharts will have 2 circles, sometimes they'll have 3, sometimes they'll have 4. Either way, the very last circle is called our output, and that is the answer to our equation. Whatever the answer is, that goes in our output. Okay? So now, I'm going to explain what these arrows mean. Okay? So these arrows right here are our math steps. I'm going to explain what that means in 1 second. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so I just need to draw a new flowchart for this equation. You don't need to do this right now. I'm just explaining a few things. Actually, let's do a new flowchart under the one you just had with the explanation of what everything is. So let's make a flowchart for this equation that you see here, 4b plus 8 equals 32. So I told you this first circle is our input, which is our variable. In this case, it's b. I know that my answer is going to be 32. Actually, let's undo that. Hold on. We're going to do 2 flowcharts here. Okay? So let's do flowcharts. We're going to do 1 flowcharts with the variables, and we're going to do 1 flowchart with numbers. Okay? And both these flowcharts are equal. Okay? So how do I set up this flowchart? So let's look at 4b plus 8. Okay? So let's look at that right now. And let's talk about what math we would do first. So if this is b right here, okay, so this is where I'm looking. What is my first math step if I was plugging in a number for b that I would do? And the first math step you see here is multiplication. So I'm going to take b and I'm going to multiply by 4. So in this math step, which is these arrows, my first math step is to multiply by 4. And when you multiply b times 4, so when you multiply b times 4, what do I get? So in this circle here, I'm going to write the expressions, because this first flowchart I'm doing with variables. So I'm going to write 4b. Okay? what is my next math step? My next math step, after I multiply by b times 4, I still have this plus 8. That's my second math step. So that's why I have another arrow here in my flow chart, because in this equation I have 2 math steps, so I need 2 arrows in my flow chart. So let's go here, and my next math step is plus 8. So when I do this, 4b plus 8, I get 4b plus 8. So that's just the expression part of the equation. Okay, so 4b plus 8. Now let's fill in another flowchart that's equal, but with numbers. Okay, you know, and I'm going to show you right here, that it equals 32. So 4b plus 8, we know, is equal to 32. When you remember, that last circle is our answer. Okay, we're going to work backwards now, so that we can figure out what does b equal. We want to know what is in the first circle. We only know what's in the last circle. We know the steps, but we need to work backwards. So that means we need to do everything in the opposite direction and backwards. So for example, we know the math steps moving forward, the arrows to the right. We're going to need to work and look at working backwards. So we know, so let me just show you what we know right here. Let me get my pointer. Okay, we know that something in this circle plus 8 should equal 32. So when I work backwards, I need to do the opposite. So the opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8. So that's what we're going to write when we draw our arrow backwards. We're going to draw that we're subtracting 8. Okay? 32 minus 8 is 24. So we're going to write 24 in that middle circle. And again, we know that something here in this first circle times 4 should equal 24. Well, we're working backwards, so we're going to do the opposite. So I'm going to draw my arrow to show that I'm working backwards. And the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. Here's one of the only cases where I'm okay with you using that division symbol, is in your flowcharts. Okay, so we know 24 divided by 4 is 6. So that means B equals 6. There are, oh look, my B and my 6 look exactly the same. So that means there are 6 blocks in each bag. I'm just going to make a note here. Okay. Okay, we're going to try another example. I'm still going to use the bags and the blocks to help us understand and make connections. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. And in front of each bag I have 3 extra blocks like you see here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write some let statements. Let's use a different variable this time. Let's use x, because that's what we're always going to be using anyway. So what is x going to stand for? So x is going to be the number of blocks in each bag. Okay, so let's look at another example. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. So draw 5 bags in your notebook. Do it neatly, left to right. Underneath each bag we're going to draw 3 extra blocks. Okay? And we're going to write some let statements. So we want to find the total number of blocks. We don't know how many blocks are in each bag, so let's use x this time. So I'm actually going to draw the x's right on the bags. And let's write our let statements. So your first let statement should be let x equal the number of blocks in each bag. Now we're going to talk about the total number of blocks in all the bags. So I'm kind of just circling those in purple. We know that if we want to find the number of blocks in all the bags, I'm just going to draw it over here, that we could add x plus x plus x plus x plus x. The easier way would say, okay, well I have 5 groups of x, so I would just multiply 5x. And so what I'm doing there is I'm combining things that are alike. I can say, hey, if I'm adding x 5 times, that's the same as 5x. So we're going to write another let statement here that says let 5x equal the number of blocks in all 5 bags. Okay, so that's our second let statement. Now we need to think about the extra blocks. So I'm going to circle those in red. Okay, so how many extra blocks do I have? Well, I have 5 bags. Each bag had 3 extra blocks, so that's 5 times 3, which we can actually do that math. So there are 15 extra blocks. So to get our total, I would add the 5x, whatever that is, plus the 15. And that's going to give us our total number of blocks. So let's write a let statement for that. And that let statement would be let 5x plus 15 equal the total number of blocks altogether. Okay, so I've written 3 let statements. The 5x plus 15 is my final one for my total number of blocks. Okay, so we know that 5x plus 15 is going to equal the total number of blocks. So if I told you the total number of blocks was 55, we would write the equation that goes with that, because we know that it equals 55. So now we're writing expressions, and then we're turning the expressions into equations. So we're going to be writing actual equations and saying what numbers they're actually equal to. So let's talk about how to make a flow chart for this. So we know we need a circle for our x, and the first math step after that we would do here is multiply by 5. So our first math step is times 5. That gives us the 5x. So right here we have the 5x. We have another math step here. We have plus 15, so we need another arrow. Show plus 15. So this would give us 5x, and then we're adding 15. So 5x plus 15. That gives us 5x plus 15. I'm underlining it up here to show there are no more math steps. So that's what my flow chart's going to look like. So now I'm going to make another flow chart. Instead of having any variables, we're going to use numbers here. So I'm still going to put my math steps in. And the only thing I'm going to change is the variables are going to turn into numbers, the expressions are going to turn into numbers. Now I don't know what x is, that's what I'm looking for. So let's put a note up here. What is x? And x is standing for the number of blocks in each bag. This is what we're trying to figure out. What is the variable? How many blocks are in each bag? So we need to solve the equation. So I know 5x plus 15, okay, which you see here. Hello? My pointer's not working. Okay, 5x plus 15. So that's this part of the equation. We know this is equal to 55. They're the same thing. So in my flow chart, I know 5x plus 15 equals 55. I know those are the same. Okay, so I know this here and this are equal. So now I need to work backwards to figure out what x is. So I'm going to do the opposite of adding. I'm going to subtract 15. So 55 minus 15 gives me 40. I need to backtrack one more step. So instead of multiplying by 5, I'm going to divide by 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So here you see that x equals 8. These are the same, okay? These are the same. 5x is equal to 40. These two flow charts, everything is equal. So we came up with x equals 8. And that means 8 blocks in each bag. Okay, so last before we go, I want you to do this practice question. So you're going to create a flow chart that goes with the equation 4f minus 10 equals 70. Okay, I want you to solve this equation, and when we say solve, we're essentially asking what is f. Okay, so create a flow chart for that, and I'm going to leave you with a song that I want you to tell me if you know what it is. That's just some upcoming highlights for our next video. I'm going to be looking for your flow chart and checking your answers. See you later, alligator.